Hello there! Fallen Order's been out for quite a while now, and earlier this month, EA CEO Andrew Wilson confirmed that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order will be the start of a new franchise. So in this video, I want to kind of discuss what that could mean. I see two paths that they could take for the next story in this franchise, as they're calling it. I think whatever the story is, and whoever the story follows, it will still be a story following a Jedi or some sort of Force user, light side probably. Third person skill tree based progression system, just like in Fallen Order, the one that's already out. But what could this game look like? Well, in my head, it will either follow Cal and the rest of that crew, so Merrin, Grease, Ser, Cal and BD1, or it will follow a whole new group of people in a completely different era. And I'm going to kind of in this video break down the for and against why we could see each one or not. So first of all, Fallen Order 2 being a game following Cal and that crew again. I think that in my mind is the most likely story that they're going to tell. They're going to continue the story of Cal Kestis. I have a few reservations about that story, however, which they can quite easily bypass in the storytelling, but in canon there's a few reasons why that might not work well, and again they can get around that. So the first reservation I have is that we know after episode 4, Luke Skywalker has no one to teach him, and he really wants someone to teach him. And it might feel a bit strange to have two Force users running around, both Jedi, or both wanting to be Jedi, and they don't interact with each other, especially considering the whole story in the first game was around trying to rebuild the Jedi. I would think that Cal and Ser, even if they're not actively trying to find a load of Force-sensitive children to become Jedi, they might at least keep an eye out for potential Jedi that have survived or who have sprung up since the start of the Empire. They could quite easily get around this by setting the story as almost a quest or an investigation into the Zepho. The Zepho were almost the group of Force users and the civilization that you learnt more and more about as you played the game, and we know that or it was thought that they wiped themselves out, they became extinct, but it's hinted at the end that they went off into the unknown regions and haven't been seen since. So it's fairly possible that the whole group went off in search of the Zepho, which would quite aptly and easily explain why they were missing from all the films that we've seen, because I'll tell you what, if I were the Rebellion, having a Jedi on your side and a Night Sister would be quite useful. The other reservation I have about setting the second game as a continuation of the first game, so following Cal as your main character, is how they would handle a progression system. The first game handled it by saying that Cal had cut himself off from the Force and he was slowly reconnecting. Therefore you could learn things that he had already learned once. It made sense in canon, and it was quite a nice way that they did it. It would feel really forced and strange if you then had to relearn everything you had already learned in the previous game. Again, they could probably get around that somehow. Potentially, the Zepho use a different aspect of the Force, and so you have to learn that aspect of the Force. That would be your progression system. Maybe you can play as Merrin in parts of the story, and so she has a progression system of her own. I'm sure there's ways around it. I just really hope that if they do follow this group of characters, that we don't just repeat the same progression that we've already done, and they try and explain it with some strange incident. Maybe Cal hit his head and now has amnesia. Oh no, he's got to relearn everything. I really hope that doesn't happen. I hope instead they try and progress what we've already done, and maybe the tutorial, rather than teaching us how to move and jump and climb, it would also teach us how to block and force pull, force push, force freeze, or force slow, etc. The other route that I can see Respawn taking is basically saying, okay, this franchise of games is going to be a franchise that we call the Jedi Franchise. So Jedi colon, and then the title of each of the individual games. So the first one is Jedi Fallen Order, then maybe the second one would be Jedi The Republic, and then maybe Jedi Luke Skywalker. I don't know. I'm not sure which characters we would follow. I'd be a little bit reserved about thinking Luke would ever become a character that we get to play as, because he's got so much lore that's already associated with him. I think the team at DICE would probably like to focus on a character that they can basically write the story for themselves. But that isn't to say that it wouldn't be interesting to follow maybe a Jedi that we've seen a little bit of in a different part of Star Wars. It would mean that you could do a progression system, because you just basically start them off as a Padawan and they progress into a Jedi Knight during the game. You can create some sort of conflict that they have to get involved in. It might mean that it would be a slightly different format of game. You wouldn't get so much repetition, because the problem with setting it around discovering and investigating the Zepho is that there's only so many times you can do a puzzle that involve floating orb things until it feels like you've already done it before. Whereas setting it around a whole nother, either group of people or a whole nother war kind of as your main theme, I think that would work. I think it's less likely than the first option, mostly because they have a group of characters they know people like, they're still alive, they kind of hint at the end that they're going to continue the story. But I don't know, let me know what you guys want to see as the next game or story in this franchise. Do you want to see more games in this franchise? And if you do you want it to follow a new group of characters, or do you want it to follow Cal? If it follows a new group of characters or it follows Cal, what stories do you want to see? Let me know. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. There's a nice little button which you can subscribe with. Bottom right hand corner, bottom left hand corner is a lovely little video just for you. Bye!